Welcome to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. On this episode, I have Phil Penman. Phil is a British-born, New York-based photographer, and he has documented the ever-changing scene of New York City streets for more than 25 years. In his career as a news and magazine photographer, with a large body of work in such publications as The Guardian, The Independent, and the New York Review of Books, Phil has photographed major public figures and historical events. In particular, his reportage following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack on the World Trade Center has been featured on NBC's Today Show, as well as on the BBC, History Channel, and Al Jazeera, and his images have been included in the 9/11 Memorial and Museum archives. Now let's hear a word from our podcast partner and get to the show. The Life of Phys Podcast is lit by HoboLight. HoboLight is on a mission to empower creators to elevate their creativity with lighting kits made to last and built to inspire. These lights are bold, beautiful, and powerful because HoboLight believes that your lights deserve to be seen. To learn more, follow them on Instagram at HoBoLite.
Yeah, so my name is Phil Penman. I'm a photographer based in New York City, but originally I'm from the United Kingdom and a county called Dorset. Grew up in a tiny little village called Bryant's Puddle, which probably most of your listeners will never have heard of, but it was about, I think, 360 people was the quota when I was living there. So, tiny place.
Wow, that is a very small place. I grew up in a small town just outside of Portland, Oregon called Milwaukee. So not that small, but when I lived there, I thought it was tiny, like this really small place. I moved to Canada and I went back and visited last year and I'm like, this place is actually pretty big. So I wouldn't, coming from somewhere so small, how did you find the camera?
It was a backup plan. That's the way that I always describe it. My dad was a photographer as well, and I always wanted to be a sports teacher, but I'm, let's put it, academically challenged would be a polite way of saying it. So I failed my sports studies. I didn't realize that you'd have to do so much like biomechanics, physiology, and all the rest of it. I thought it was kind of like, all right, if you're good at sport. Failed that miserably, and then aced my photography. So got an A in photography, and path was kind of chosen there. I went to, it's so over there you kind of have the choice between doing like a degree or a higher national diploma. Diplomas are always the one that people that want to go kind of straight into the workforce, you do that. So I did my diploma, and then I managed to skip a year and go into the higher national diploma. And you're doing, it's very practical. Like a degree is more like theory, history of, we touch on that, but it was more, all right, this week we're going to learn how to shoot food photography with a 5.4. Next week is going to be you're going to be a photojournalist and you're going to go and photograph a news event. And every week we had a completely different assignment and just learned so much doing that. Then I got at the end of it, I did like a 2-week work experience with a guy in London doing copy photography, which is I think it's pretty much gone now. But back then we'd have like a couple of medium formats set up, one table each, and it was like product shots, and you'd light it and you would charge like £25 for a picture, but you would do like 100 pictures a day. So this guy was coining it in, like making an absolute fortune doing this. Learned a lot from him, and I learned very quickly that I don't ever want to be an assistant photographer, because you are making, back then it was £150 a week. Your rail fare was £200 a week. And it was like, right, well, how many years have I got to do this? So I was just like, right, you know what? I'm just going to go straight to work. I got a job with a local newspaper doing like news stuff. Again, every day you're doing like 8 different jobs a day, every different type of job you can imagine for like local newspaper stuff. Did that for a year. Bullshitted my way in would be a polite way of putting it. I walked in as chief photographer. I'd never done a photography job before, and I was chief photographer. And I was basically like hiring the freelancers to cover the jobs that we couldn't cover. Did that for a year, and then went and worked for a news agency covering for the national newspaper. So a much higher profile, working for like the Daily Telegraph, the Guardian, the Red Tops, which is our way of saying the tabloids. And then one night I was on a stakeout with another photographer. It was like 11 at night. We sat in a car together, and he just, he told me, I basically said that I wanted to live in New York because that was where I always wanted to live. And he said, well, hit up I used to work for a company in Los Angeles, hit up Gary and Kevin, the guys that ran this company called Splash News. And a couple of weeks later, I was moving to Los Angeles. And that's where my journey to getting here started.
It's very neat to see during a lot of these conversations that I have. It's just saying yes to opportunity, asking the right person, getting that little bit of a contact, and just jumping in with both feet, throwing yourself out there. So now we've left England, and now we're in LA.
Yeah, moved to LA. Very quickly discovered it wasn't really for me. Like the place itself, I never really. It's a lot hard. It's a very hard place to, especially if you don't know anyone. And like the company I was working for, it wasn't about like, social or anything like that. You socialize with your work colleagues, but you worked all the time. I didn't really get to see my apartment ever. We were flying like all the time. I remember, quite funny. I don't think I ever told this one. I was doing there's like a test you go through, right, with these guys. It's like either you can do the job or you're not, or you can't. Back home, the jobs you're doing is like, right, drive 2 hours and do a news job. This time it was like, right, we need you to fly into a tiny little place called Ely, Nevada, middle of nowhere. It was like you get a plane to Vegas and you get a private little plane from there into Ely. And it was the Rat Race movie. I don't know if you remember that one with like Whoopi Goldberg and Rowan Atkinson, all these, John Cleese, they're all in it. And I got sent there. That was my test. And it was like, can you get sent somewhere with no information and no, basically you're on your own and either you're going to get the pictures or not. And I got there and I got caught on set. I snuck onto the set. I got caught pretty much straight away. Someone figured out like that guy with a clipboard is not supposed to be here. The police were called. I remember some sheriff came up to me and just said, look, you can't be on set. And I asked him politely, I was like, well, where can I be? And he said, well, you have to go past that road. So I went up the street, parked my car up there. And then all of a sudden they kept moving the set closer and closer to where I was. And next thing you know, you got Cuba Gooding Jr. He's like riding a donkey down the middle of the street, being chased by one of those huge trucks with David Spade in, and it was all of them. And I was nailing all these pictures from my car. I got out of the car, walked down the street, and the cop saw me, and he was like, "Did you get the pictures?" Yes, sir, I did. And he said, "Good for you. I thought you would." And then went back to the car, and then the PAs, they were waiting by the car, and they were like, "This is your car?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they knew who I was. And they said, "This has been screwing up our shot because we didn't know whose car it was." And it's like this bright red car in the background of their shot. So I passed my test. Let's put it that way.
Nice. That's pretty cool. You just kind of, the cop kind of directed you a bit. Go to that road.
Yeah.
Gave you a little insider information. I love it.
That's where you're safe. You can be safe up there.
So how long did you do? Do you say that you were paparazzi, or is that something that you don't like to talk about? You just captured celebrities. You just did your job.
No, it was my job. It was, over here it's kind of, you call paparazzi is like the fancy name, but at the end of the day, not many of us really wanted to do it. But at the same time, everybody in the world bloody wants to see it. It was the most hypocritical job, you'd be stood there and you'd be like taking. I remember being outside some hotel. No, it was a hospital. Sorry, waiting for Sarah Jessica Parker, and it was some guy comes up to us and said, "Why won't you leave her alone?" And I said, "Because you won't bloody let me." He said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "That newspaper that you're holding in your hands is the one that's paying for me to be here." And I said, "Who do you think's funding this?" And they didn't get it. But if there wasn't the demand, nobody would be doing it.
Was it quite lucrative, like financially?
Oh, it was huge,
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. I always say, like, when you think about like what people will do to get 10 grand, like what, or 20 grand, what would somebody do in order to get that? And then all of a sudden you've got a legitimate way of making money doing it. And you're making, when I lived in England, like I didn't really, I definitely didn't come from money, that's for certain. I busted my ass when I was in college. I had 3 different jobs just to pay for the awful bloody paper that I was using in the darkroom. So back then I was making about £13,500 a year, and that was chief photographer of a newspaper, which translates to probably about $20,000 now. And then all of a sudden you're making $100,000 in your first year. And you're like, oh, hang on a second, I think I can handle this. Because we were still getting to shoot cool portrait jobs and news jobs as well. So it wasn't just doing celebrity, but, the bosses were very rightly so that, this is the stuff that pays the bills, not that stuff.
So did you find like the decline of it, was that around kind of the social media age where cell phones got better, or did people just stop really looking for those type of images?
It's still huge. The money's not there, and it's politics has kind of become the new entertainment in a way. I got out in 2015 because I could kind of see the demise of the business. Back when I was doing it, it was like, you think of it like this: you're paying a premium price for a premium product. And then the agencies kind of went down the same route as like the Spotify and these large subscription models. So you would have like, American media say, where before they might pay $50,000, $100,000 for a set of Angelina Jolie. All of a sudden they're saying, well, hang on a minute, if we pay you $250,000 a month, every month, can we use whatever content we want? Bar minus some of the big exclusive stuff, but everything else. So all of a sudden you're going from like, making 20, 30 grand a month to 60-cent pictures. The sale would be $1, you'd get 60 cents. And bear in mind, there's no salary. So either you go out on the street and either you hustle and you make money, or you make nothing and the worst was if you come home and you didn't get any pictures that day. It's effectively, you've just ridden around hustling for 12 hours and you made nothing. So that was always like a mental thing, especially like, say you went 2 weeks and you didn't get any pictures at all that were any good, or, it's winter time and no one really gave a shit about winter because they wanted pictures of people in bikinis in Miami or in the Caribbean. So then it became about like, are you willing to invest, I don't know, 10, 20 grand of your own money to go down to the Caribbean for a month and hope that you get pictures on spec? Because I quit the staff job after about 5 years. I kind of learned my trade, went freelance because that was where the real money was, as long as you had good contacts. So you saw like the subscription model come in, but then also like, Instagram, all of a sudden, like the celebrities decided that they wanted to start controlling their own image, where why am I letting this photographer make all the money when I can get a piece of that money? So they were like directly they would call you, you would take the pictures, they would then sell the pictures through the paparazzi agency, so it looked legitimate, and they're getting 70% of the money. So I just quit. I knew that was the end.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, was Because you always see, you watch a show or a movie and they talk about how they'll, their agent or their assistant will call paparazzi and have them at a place. I didn't know if that was a real thing, but sounds like it was.
Oh, it's way darker than that. It's yeah, I remember doing jobs in LA where it would be like, all right, A-list celebrity with he's going to be going to this bar at this time of night. We didn't get that. They didn't show. All right, well, he's going to be going here tomorrow at 11 for coffee. And you were like, hang on, like, we haven't got a GPS tracker on this guy, right? So where's this information coming from? And it turns out it's like the guy's girlfriend. Like his new girlfriend is trying to make a name for herself by ratting out the guy. Or the other thing that you get is like I did a few of these in my time, the product placement shots. So you'd get like a company would basically say, look, if we give, we're going to give this celebrity a couple of big bottles of this certain kind of water. Can you get some pictures of her walking down the street with it? And it's a commission job from that company who is paying that celebrity to do this. And then, it's made to look like a paparazzi picture.
That's crazy. It's such a dark industry, eh?
Oh, it's pretty bad. There was one guy in England who was really, really good. This guy could go into any newspaper and dictate the front page the next day, and he had the best sources. It was a guy called Jason Fraser, who I remember growing up, and it was like every day you'd see a front cover, Jason Fraser / whoever he was working with, and it's like, how is this guy getting all this stuff? He's so good. He's on every bloody island you can imagine, and it's he had the in. He was just way ahead of his time, and he had the biggest people, like royalty. The rumor was he was always an aristocrat. I don't know how true that was, but I take my hat off to the guy.
People have a connection like that. They have the inside line. It happens in almost every industry. There's one guy that you always look at and you're like, how are you here? How did you do that?
Yeah.
So 2015, you left doing that. What was your goal to achieve after 2015?
Well, I was always doing, my own work. I've always done my own work ever since I was 15. There's, be it landscapes or some street stuff, whatever it was. I was always trying to do my own personal photography as well, because I do enjoy it, obviously. 2015 rolled around and I was just like, mentally, I couldn't take it anymore. I was losing my shit. I just couldn't handle it. It's one of the worst jobs for your own personal mental, because you think about it like this. You've got everyone who's buying the pictures or reading the magazines, the hypocritical ones, right? They don't like you. The celebrities don't like you. The security don't like you, right? And then everyone that you work with is working against you because it's so competitive. And then even the guys that you would work with, like you would partner up with, they would be doing stuff on the sly. Like they're working, like they have a side hustle with another photographer. So you're just like, you're on your own. You're like completely on your own. Couldn't take it. My poor wife kind of just had to deal with me complaining, and I was just like, right, that's it. I'm out. I was a cyclist at the time as well, and a good friend of mine, Rich Desmond, he was a sales and marketing manager at the company called Castelli, and he used to race on the same team as me. And I just went to him and said, look, any job at all, and he said, well, he's selling cycling clothing. And I said, I don't care. I'm a hustler. I'll make it happen. And he said, okay, well, you're Northeast sales manager for Castelli. Like it was a really good company. We had we had the top team in the world, was sponsored by us. And I walked in and I think our sales were like 300,000 or so for for the region. And by the time I quit, I took it to about 900,000. So my old boss, he was like, it was, one of the, you made me look smart. That's the way he said it.
Well, we have a connection. I worked in the cycling industry for probably 20 years.
Oh, awesome. Where were you?
I ran just local shops here in town. I managed shops. The Phys name actually was a cycling brand.
Yeah.
So Phys stood for pedal harder, you sissy.
Yeah.
We rode fixed gears. So we'd pass road riders and we'd always be, pedal harder, you sissy.
I used to have a Vigarelli. That was my go-to.
Nice.
That's how I used to chase the celebrities, was on a Cinelli Vigarelli fixed gear. And,
amazing.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a beautiful bike. But our offices, we were Portland. We also had an office in the US was in Portland, Oregon. Okay. So I used to have to come out there.
Nice.
So
I love Portland. Portland's still my hometown. It's still where I would love to be. But, I'm established here with kids and wives and all that fun jazz. So the cycling connection, Phys we were actually going to do a component brand. So it was going to be hubs, gear, or hubs, cranksets, wheel sets, headsets. But
for fixed gear.
For fixed gear. Because it was right at the start, where fixed gear was just blowing up.
Oh, it went nuts. Yeah, it went nuts. My friend, I don't know if you know David Trimble.
Name sounds super familiar.
He's responsible for Red Hook.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So like I watched that just go crazy, and being out on the street, like being one of the only guys on a fixed gear, and then all of a sudden you see it like just getting bigger and bigger, and then it's like the trend. I remember the problem was you couldn't really have a nice bike because you would just get stolen.
Yeah.
I remember I had a beautiful set of Philwood's hubs, and they almost got taken.
Yeah, you can't leave anything anywhere.
Nope.
So when that didn't work out, because we were pretty young still and didn't have the money to build the company how we wanted to, because it was all about quality product at a good price. In order to get quality product at a good price, we had to buy a lot of it. It just wasn't going to work. Yeah. But my friend and I said one of us was going to make the name into something. It was going to work. It was going to be out there again because it meant a lot to us. And then I turned it into Photography Heals Your Soul. And that's where, I found my therapy from things that I dealt with in my life through the camera. It gave me a purpose again. It gave me a creative outlet where I had skateboarding growing up. I had cycling growing up. I had all that taken away after the 9th ankle break. I can't put pressure on one leg very much. So, so I was able to bring it back into this. I let him know that, hey, I found something. I'm going to use the name, got him his approval. And this is where we're at. And it's been an amazing ride. You like talking to you, I've learned, cyclists. I heard about an industry that I always was curious about. Like that's such great information to learn in a platform like a podcast. There's going to be people going, "Oh, Phil rides bikes."
Oh, I did. The curse of a racer. Unfortunately, I trying to do both. Like this is full on. What I do right now is absolutely like just nonstop. It wasn't really in the beginning, but I was a pretty hardcore time trialist. I was the state champion for New York State. I got to UCI 1.2 level. I got to do Univest, which is like one of the biggest ones in the US. I got to do that. And then you're competing against Olympians and like top pros, and you're just like, right, I'm shit. Like I can't hold the wheel with these guys. And you're like, right, that's my level right there. Time out. Also the hospital bills as well. Like I broke my collarbone. That was a 50-mile-per-hour crash in Killington road race. That one took me out. Like a photographer that has a broken collarbone is not a great business strategy. And then the final one was I was riding with a client like in the middle of nowhere, and a bloody dog just came running out off leash, and I just landed badly, broke my hip, and that took me out for about 2 years. So yeah, that was after that. I was like, right, well, you know, when you race, you're always like inches away from a crash. And it's a question of like, well, how many times am I going to crash? And is the crash that I'm going to get, is that going to be a life debilitating one? Like I have friends who are paralyzed. You know, they lost everything. So my wife was kind of like, right, enough with the racing. And then I went out on a training ride and a car hit me. And I was like, right, I bounced off another car and it's like, right, that's it for me. I'm done throwing myself into photography.
And so after Castelli, these crashes, is that where you really just started focusing on like the street style? Is that where you kind of spent most of your time going into your street photography?
Yeah, I was always kind of doing it. And I had a show in 2015 with Leica in New York. And then went off on this 3-year journey with the cycling, knowing that I was going to try to build my career. You know, and you never really you're doing the pictures and you're building it up slowly, but then there's a lot more to it. You know, it's photography is just like 50% of it. It's not, you know, as part of the journey, but there's a lot more to it. So when I broke my hip, I was kind of forced into this position where I couldn't do it. So I just, all right, started listening to podcasts about marketing, website design, just went full on how to market myself much better, put together a nice website, right? Started doing the teaching stuff and just decided that I needed to, I took a big plunge and invested a lot of money, refinanced my house to do my first book. Because I knew that, right, you need to have a book out there, right? But these books are not cheap. You know, you're talking 20,000 to 100,000 plus to do a book, and with a publisher as well. So I was like, right, I need to do a book because it's like having a portfolio in every store all around the world, if you're lucky. And so I invested a lot of money, did the book, and I was just lucky. I saw the guy had like 5,000 followers at the time on Instagram. It wasn't that much, but I knew, right, well, you know, I'll do a Kickstarter as well, try to get some of the money back. And then the first book it launched very well. You know, it went to number one on Amazon. You know, I saw the little one, I didn't realize what it was, and it said, right, it's number one new release. And I looked who was number two, and it was Bill Cunningham. So I was like, right, I'm onto something here. You know, this is something that can be pushed. And things just kind of exploded from there. Let's put it that way.
Well, you were in good company. I love Bill Cunningham. I love his character. I love the way he captured things. I showed my wife.
I used to chat to him.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I used to see him on the street all the time because he'd be running the same circles. He'd be in like either in front of Barney's or out on 57th Street, and all the celebrity photographers, everyone knew who everyone was.
Yeah, I showed my wife his a little documentary on YouTube about him, and she was like, I really like this guy. Just the way he carried himself, and, you know, the fact that he still rode his bicycle, you know, till the end. He loved it.
True class.
Yeah.
There's one, is it HBO or Netflix? There's like a really long one, a long form doc that's really good.
I have it on DVD. I bought it off Amazon.
Yeah, it's very good, that one.
Such a great story. You know, you can see he touches all the basis of the highest highs to the lowest lows of his life, and he shares that with people.
Yeah.
That's important. It gives you a personal connection to the artist, right?
Mm.
That's amazing. You got to meet that man. That's incredible. I guess in New York, you get to meet a lot of the people that some would deem, you know, the upper echelon of the photography space, right? They're there. They're in New York. They're in LA. Things like that.
I'm not just the photography world, but just like people in general. I've gotten to meet, you know, when I was in cycling, you know, as well, like you get to meet everyone. And the cool thing about cycling was it didn't matter who you were in your day job. It was either you're good at cycling or you're not. And everyone on the cycling gear with the helmet on is anonymous. So in my daily world, I would not be accepted. In their world, I was a great cyclist. So it's the great equalizer.
Yeah. So then after the crash, the hip, hearing the advice of listening to marketing websites and how to market yourself better, I mean, I'm going to take that to heart because that's where I'm at right now.
You have to.
That's what I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn how to take this platform and what I want to build out of it and how to get it out to the masses. Like it's doing good.
Yeah.
You know, I got something that said in a test of 3,384,000 podcasts, I was in the top 10%. And I was like,
that's great.
I'll take it. Like, thank you.
That's great.
This is amazing. I want to build it to a space where I can just share stories and give people what they want to hear. They want to hear your life and how you got to where you are. They want to hear your advice. They want to hear that you, like you mentioned, you had mental health struggles with the paparazzi job, right? And how you started to feel like it was low.
Other things as well. But yeah, that
life in general.
That, you know, the old 9/11 doesn't help. That was a big one. Took me 2 years before I could even talk about that one. It's endless, right? It's life. Doesn't get any easier.
No, how close were you to the 9/11 incident?
Oh, it came down one block in front of me.
Really?
Yeah, no, I was shooting. Those are by far the biggest pictures I'll ever take in my life. But there's a couple that kind of gone on to be so self-described iconic, I think more because of the story of them afterwards. But I was down there, got down there because I heard that the plane had crashed into the building, and then literally came down one block in front of me. So I was shooting the first World Trade Center as it's coming down, and then ran into J&R Music, which was like a music store on Park Row, just near the church there. And then just everything went blacked out. And then came out and started photographing the only survivors. And that's something that I just, every year, it's brought back. We're coming up again soon. But I developed a lot of strong relationships with people that I photographed that day as well. But yeah, that's one that, one of many, I'm sure.
That's where the humanity of the situation really hits deep. You know, I remember I just turned the news on that morning and I grabbed my coffee and I went to sit down, and it was one of those moments where you basically just drop the coffee cup. Because on the live news, the second plane hit. And I was like, This can't be real. Like, what am I on? Like, what channel is this? And I remember waking my wife up, and then, I went going into work, and we were on the flight path for the Vancouver airport and watching plane after plane after plane be grounded, watching a few of them fly in with military escort. And man, like, it must have been so hard to, one, continue to shoot and do the things you felt you had to do while being there. And the human part of you just looking around going, what just happened? How can I help? Like there must have been just so many things pulling at you during that. It's unbelievable that you were that close and that happened. And man, I don't even know what else to say. Like, that's pretty intense.
Yeah. And it wasn't just, the thing is, it's not just the day, right? That's the beginning of it. That's just the initial. And then comes the fallout. So we were just working non-stop round the clock for months on everything related to that story. And then you got then you're doing the 1 year anniversary. And then on the 20-year anniversary, I did a big piece for the Wall Street Journal, like, photographing the same people that I photographed on that day. We did like a big special feature for the 20th 20-year anniversary. And then, of course, because one of the stories that I covered that day is kind of blown up into like a big story. So, I was on History Channel or BBC Day Show, and I was live on 20-year 9/11 as well. So you're doing all these interviews and all this kind of stuff as well, which because it's kind of important to keep. You don't want it to become one of these events that people like slowly phase out. They don't remember.
Yeah. It's like, I feel it, I remember the moments. I remember my feelings. But I'm on the other side of the country. So the fact that, that you had to continually work through it because that was your job, you were there to capture everything happening. You were absorbing it on a completely different level. We saw it on TV, we saw it in picture,
yeah, but it still messes with people,
Oh, yeah.
no matter what. Like I think one of my earliest things that I remember that when I was really young is Hillsborough, if you ever remember that, where I was a big, and still am, huge Liverpool fan. And that was one of the big turning points when I was a kid, because I tuning in back then. It was like you're listening into the radio, and I remember them just going on. People were ripping boards off the side of the pitch, and I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" And it turned out that 96 people died that day. That was still that still gets me because it's still going on, the affairs, but.
Yeah, we'll move on. I can see how it affects you, and I all I can say is thank you for capturing those moments because they're important to people in their histories and families of the people that you captured. Man, thank you for what you do. It's impressive that you were able to do that 20 years later. So that's a big step in that one. So let's move on to some more happy things. Like, how long have you been connected with Leica?
So I started shooting with Leica in 2004. I think that was when I bought my first Leica, thanks to Britney Spears. I had to do a talk the other night. That's what I remember saying, but it's very true. Because there's no way I would have been able to buy if I was working back in England back then. There's no way in hell that I'd ever be able to buy any of this gear, And then I'm like, got an R8, a 6.2, an R9. I had all these film cameras. My first one was an M7, which I still have, and I slowly just acquired. Just built up. I buy a lot of used gear. There's plenty of, don't get me wrong, not all of it's expensive because a lot of it you can pick up used for really good deals. On my travels around the world, I'm always on the search. There's always a deal. Like the latest one I bought was a 135-2.8, which I think I paid 150 euros for.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful, beautiful lens. Like an R lens. So I've been shooting with them for quite a long time. It's 20 years now. 20 years.
Nice. And you put on workshops in conjunction with Leica?
Yeah, so I teach for Leica Academy. I do workshops around the world for them. I got a ton coming up, to be honest. I teach pretty much daily anyway, like doing private stuff that's unrelated to Leica. I got a workshop starts Monday. Got another 2-day workshop that I'm doing, and then
Nice.
a couple later in the week. But yeah, I've been teaching for Leica Academy since about 2015. I think it was the first one I did. And then middle of August, I'm off to Australia doing teaching for the Academy in Melbourne and Sydney. And then I got doing one for them in Paris in November. And then we're trying to set up something in Doha right now for beginning of the year. And then I've got London, Switzerland, Austria, Paris. 25 is all planned out already. It's kind of nice to know.
Yeah, when we originally set this up and I got your schedule, like, of days you were free, it was like, okay, This one. There was very few days, and I'm so grateful that we were able during our reschedule to make this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a busy guy. So that actually will lead me to the first question from Dave Simpson in Abbotsford, British Columbia. I started a new thing I was telling you before I recorded that I've just been asking people if they have any questions for my guests. So we'll take a few minutes and we'll just throw them out there. But
That's a good idea.
Dave Simpson, he's a Leica Q2 shooter, monochrome. Wants to know if you ever have any plans to do workshops here in Vancouver.
I would love to, definitely at some point. I'm open to doing it anywhere.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, as long as there's like the ground support, because I put on a lot myself as well, and I have friends in Vancouver as well. So yeah, of course I would be very open. I want to travel as much as I can. Let's put it that way.
Nice. Well, if you need any help with it here, just let me know and I'll do what I can to help make it happen.
Sounds like a plan.
So teaching is huge, going around. You do multi-day. Is it like are they all multi-day workshops, or is there times where it's a day? You just spend a day with a client.
But like overseas ones they're multi-day.
Okay.
They tend to be usually two days and a night. I do private ones, so it goes anywhere from like 4 hours to 2 days. But a lot of the time, it's like repeat customers as well. So, we did this in this session, and the next session I want to go to this place. So that's the bulk of my work. But yeah, you could do. I'm pretty stupid, so I overload my schedule. So, I might do 11 days in 12, and it might be 8 or 9 different clients.
Okay, that's crazy. I thought I was the only crazy one. I have days.
No, I'm real stupid. I got you covered.
I've got three or four podcast recordings back to back on multiple days this month, just because I was sick for 3 weeks, had a cough for 2 more weeks, couldn't record, so I had to push people and make it happen. But it's going to be a grind, but it's so worth it once you start seeing them go out and you start seeing people listen to them and really appreciate them.
Oh, it's huge resource now. It's unbelievable. Like that's all I listen to. So, but I'll do podcasts for YouTube where you can see. So there's so many that Diary of a CEO. I love Stephen Bartlett. He has so many good guests on. But it's like even if I'm editing in the morning, I get up pretty early. I'm up by 5. I start editing whatever I've got. And then I'll just put one of them on in the background.
Yeah. My car and get in the car. I've walked to and from work now. So, I have camera in one hand, podcast in the ear, just
cool. Taking
in information, trying to figure out ways to take the information I'm hearing and expand what I'm doing. Because at one point, one day, I would love to make it my full-time thing. So
why not?
Yeah. Just keep pushing, right? Just keep pushing, keep learning. Keep trying to inspire others. It's
only going to get bigger.
It was very weird. I don't know if you experienced it when you first started. When you start there and you look at the first thing you put out there for the public to criticize, and all of a sudden you start seeing people like it, and it starts rising in listens and numbers. And by the time you're putting the second episode out, you're like, I can't believe that many people listened to what I said. So it's
great.
It's such a cool experience, and people online have been so supportive and sharing it for me. That's so important to have people share the links and the guests, and it just brings new people in, and the emails you receive about, hey man, really like the message that you're doing. We like the approach of the podcast, things like that. It's so touching that people would take the time of the day to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm learning. I'm going to start listening to more marketing podcasts, I believe, just to help push things to the next level.
Lots of good ones, but yeah, it's not everyone's nasty out there, right?
Yep.
I'll look at it like when you post a picture or something, I'm pretty lucky in that I have a very good group of fans or people that follow my work who are very loyal and very supportive. And if so, what's kind of fun is like if someone asks a question about like what camera was that taken on, three people will answer the question for me. Or if someone says something stupid, other people will react to it, so I don't have to. I did a talk in Fotografiska, New York, a couple of nights ago, and the organizers, they said, you have a very loyal, supportive group. And she said it's very rare because we do a lot of talks here, and it's very rare that you can see how supportive they are. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you don't hear it often. You always hear people talk about all of the nastiness that they have to deal with by just trying to be a creative and put their work out there in the world. Whether it's YouTube getting comments where people tell you to kill yourself, like, really? Okay.
Right.
I'm sorry. I hope you heal. Like, what do you do?
There's,
like, how do you deal with that? That's crazy.
There's a guy, I don't know if you ever watched this guy called Andrew Bustamante.
It doesn't sound familiar, no.
He's he used to work for the intelligence services, and he was on a podcast with a couple of guys, and he said the thing is, these people that write these nasty comments are so stupid they don't even realize that your nasty comment is actually helping push your podcast more. Like the more comments, and say you say something, in their conversation, so they say something that's going to trigger people. They're like, right, well, we just know when all the trolls are going to hit, and they're actually push the video. I'm not reading it anyway, but it was kind of interesting for someone to say that.
Yeah, it's like that. All publicity is good publicity, right?
Yeah, but it takes a lot mentally to try to not take in what that person said.
Yeah. Now, in the beginning, when you were first starting and you hadn't quite built this group of people that were very supportive of you, how did you cope with those moments? Did you have a strategy when people were negative? Did it affect you in any sort of way, or did you just let it slip off your back and move on?
No, it definitely doesn't slip off the back. That's for sure. I think, you can, depending on the type of person you are, like for me, it could sit with me for 2 weeks and it just keeps going back around. Try to get out of your head and then it comes back again. And there's no escaping it until something else happens. And then there's a new thing to take its place. But there's always going to be something more stressful or something stressful coming along. And I don't know, trying to get better at dealing with it. Try not to be on social as much, just because you're driven by like the dopamine. I added X amount of followers, that's a good thing, but is it? It's like, so trying to separate those things a little bit better now.
I'm the same way. I have one negative thing will be nonstop. Okay, it's gone, and then boom, it's right back, and it just sits there in the back of your head, whispering in your ear. Every time you think you're moving in the direction, it's like, oh, remember that guy? What he said? That's what you are, right? You just fight with that. I understand. I feel that completely. I had a talk with a fine arts school here in Langley, British Columbia. I live right outside of Vancouver. With their photo majors class, so a 9-10 split class. And my first question always is, explaining how the likes and follows, well, they're nice and they feel really good. They actually don't matter. What matters is that you love the art that you're creating.
Right.
And once, and I even say to them, I'm like, it sounds great. I always look at likes. I always look at follows, and it gets in my head every single time. But as long as I'm putting out a product that I'm proud of and that I'm happy with, that's really all that matters. I can work through the other aspects of social media life, the negatives, the people who want to put you down for no reason. But as long as I'm proud of my work, it gives me a positive to look at, and then I can move through it.
Yeah. No, it's that's the thing that matters. You know, I've always enjoyed, it's very addictive, as you know, what we do. Very, very addictive. And, you know, only thing that really matters to me is when I'm out there taking pictures, you know, and then the next morning when you wake up and you have your coffee and you look back at what you got, and then you know when it's something really good as well. And I know what's good to me. And, you know, there's other images are not going to resonate with someone else, maybe the same way. So I can detach myself from that as well. Like, I know, to me, what's good. You know, I can look at other photographers' works or go to museums, and, you know, I know what stands out to me. You know, so that's why I'm doing it. That's what I enjoy. You know, like I'll do this thing where you know, if I'm watching a movie and I see like an incredible frame that the cinematographer's done, I'll freeze the picture, to do a screenshot of it, or just like you're in awe of just like, wow. You know, I don't know if you've seen it yet, like Ripley, was it Robert Eltwistle, the cinematographer, and you just like, you're looking at some of the shots and you're like, fuck me, how the hell did he come up with that? Like, stunning, absolute stunning. And you're just like, you know, that's why we do this. For that moment where you look at it and just like, damn. Yeah.
When I picked up the camera for the first time, it did change. Like when I'd watch a movie, but it was the color grading. That's what drew me in, was the color grading that they chose. And then you would see how it reflected or how it changed the look of certain materials. And it blew me away. So I was doing things very similar. Like I'd watch movies over and over again for the color grading.
I have a Ridley Scott mode. I have a preset that I've nicknamed Ridley Scott, where it's just like dark blue. And sometimes what I'll do is when I go out shooting and I'm going to shoot color, I can't stand looking at I hate to say it, I can't stand looking at the world in like normal. So I'll put it in Ridley Scott mode, go like 2000 Kelvin, full blue, have a blast, taking pictures.
Do you ever get those moments like you click the shutter and you're just like, oh, I nailed that one, and you're just so excited for an image?
I've gotten caught up with the moment a few times where what you're shooting is like, but the actual, it's like a movie playing out. That's the best way to describe it. Is like you're shooting a movie scene.
Yeah,
you're lost in it. Yeah, no,
I took a
beautiful
photo of it's a landscape photo, but there's an Indigenous painter here in Canada. His name's Roy Henry Vickers, and he painted this beautiful image of Siwash Rock in downtown Vancouver in Stanley Park at sunset, with the chief looking at the rock in a silhouette form. And I've always wanted to recreate this image. And we had a really bad forest fire smoke, so it's causing sunsets to be pinks and really purples. Hard. Yeah, and but the sky was beautiful at night. Like when the sun was going down, the colors that it would create in the smoke. So I was down there with a friend, and I happened to turn around, and I was looking at it. I was like, okay, silhouette, I see it. If I could only get people to stand there. And I looked back the other way, and I came back around, and there was a group of 5 people staring at the rock, and one person had their arm extended with their phone. And I clicked the shutter. And as soon as I clicked the shutter, I was like, you know, a kid on Christmas. Oh, I nailed it. Best photo ever. And then I ended up sitting on the photo for 2 years before I shared it anywhere. And it is still one of my favorite photos I've ever taken.
Awesome.
Because, and it connected me with Roy Henry Vickers. We've had many conversations since then. And it's so neat how one image can open so many different doors. You know, we have conversations about his paintings and things that he's doing now. And he, at one point, was going to recreate the image based on my photograph. But his gallery said his image is iconic and they shouldn't recreate it. Hey, I'm just happy to be that close.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Any advice for people getting into this that you can give for newcomers, dealing with all the pressures?
In which part of this? Photography in
In the
general, or street
photography,
photography,
yeah.
or photography?
Probably street photography will be what
Oh,
most are.
street photography, that's a hustle, right? There's not really, like, I'll be straight up honest, there's really not that much money in it. Unless you have, like, a 20, 30-year career behind you already. So, it wouldn't be, I'm sure there are ways to make money doing, like, if you're doing the podcast, the lectures, the photo workshops, and you put it all together. But as a shooting and just selling prints, very, very, very hard. Like you saw, even I had to do a 3-year stint selling Lycra in order to have a backup plan with healthcare to try to build a name for myself. And I already had 20 years in the business. So, I would just say, when you're starting up, make sure that you have something else as well. Like, just don't put all your eggs in one basket. You can put all your passion into your work and creating something, but you need to, you don't want to be one of these people that says, oh, I'm just going to throw myself into photography, because there's a lot more to it than just photography. There's a million great photographers out there, but it doesn't mean that they're going to make it, because maybe they can't be bothered to learn about marketing. And the thing is, the marketing side, right? It has to be done whether you like it or not. There's not going to be some miracle cure that's going to save you. It's got to be done. It's a question of whether you are paying someone to do it for you or you're doing it yourself. So learning about marketing, legal, knowing the law, okay, protecting yourself. So when you have no idea how important a contract is. When you get a contract, am I signing away the copyright? I've had plenty of contracts that have come to me where it's like, it sounds like, you just won the World Cup, and then buried on page 38, they just took the copyright away from you. But they never told you that in the email or the phone call, but then they try to hide it somewhere. So, you got to know the legal side of things as well. Be very careful who you trust. There's in every form of the arts, there is someone lining up to take advantage of you. It's unfortunate. It's just what it is. But it is the most beautiful thing when you can make it work. It really is. Like, I'm living a dream. Seriously.
Yeah. That advice about contracts and knowing the law and actually reading the fine print is so important in trying to be a business person. You have to protect yourself. You have to own the copyright to your work. Now, how does it work? So, I mean, I know you don't do much with celebrities or things like that anymore, but I heard when you capture at an event, you capture a celebrity on stage, they have legal right to those photos. Is that correct? Or does it?
No, it depends. Like, I'm not a legal scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but it depends. If it was taken on public property, if you took it in a private arena and there's a thing on the door that says, when you come into this place, you are granting us the license. You see it with film sets all the time, where if you walk in this area, there's a big sign. It doesn't matter whether it's a public street or not, but if you walk in this area, there is a warning sign telling you that you are granting them the license to use your image in their movie.
Okay.
But if you take a picture on public, it's different in different countries. In the US, though, largely you are protected by the Constitution. If you photograph someone in a public space and you use it for editorial purposes, then you're fine.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's once you start shooting stuff and you use it for a commercial purpose, like promoting a product or selling a product, or that could be tricky. Different countries. I think Germany even if you take a picture of the person in public, if I'm not mistaken, the person owns the copyright to their own image in Germany.
So it's always good to learn the law around capturing images in a public place wherever you are.
Yeah, I think in Japan you can actually be arrested if you take a picture that dishonors somebody.
Good to know.
So wherever you're going, try to learn a little bit of the local law.
I got another question for you.
Go for it.
So this is from Dean. I'm going to butcher his last name. It's Hinnant on Threads. He says, can you recall an experience, either good or bad, that helped you become more present with the camera? And then there's a second part was, how was it helpful to your process, and does it continue to be an influence for you today?
I think you've got to be present in life, not just the camera. Most people aren't even present in life. You know, they're deep in another world on their phones. For me, I'm present with the camera all the time because you're constantly scanning for things. You're trying to see, that's basically what it is. You're looking to see what's out there. I think working as a news photographer, like you have to be present as well because 9/11, some big events like that. There's stuff happening around you all the time. Even today, a lot of the time I don't have my camera glued to my face because I still want to be very aware of my surroundings, of what's going on around me all the time. So yeah, try to be present in everything, Dean. Stay off their phone.
Well, that's the thing. Everywhere you go, people are buried in that phone, not paying attention to anything that's happening in the world.
How many pictures are we going to have of people with phones? Like I saw a picture the other day. It was at the Vivian Maier exhibition here, and it was all the people on a bus, all reading their newspapers, right? But that was a hell of a lot more interesting picture than a bunch of people sat there looking at their phones. Like there was one the other day on the subway where it's like literally every person on the subway is looking down at a phone.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff happening around you if you take the time to look at it and witness it and absorb it instead of looking at what that screen provides.
Oh, so when I'm teaching or when I'm with people, my phone doesn't come out of my it's on silent all day and it doesn't come out of the bag, because you're present with the person.
Yeah, that also makes that person feel very, very important to that time frame. You're showing them you're showing them that they're important and their time is worth money, and you're giving them the attention they deserve. So that's great. You want to talk about your book, New York Street Diaries?
Yeah, very, 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 very happy with it. That was we were saying earlier. You just got to reach out sometimes. So that publisher, Tenois, it's a big German publisher, and they've done some of the biggest names. All the Elliot Erwitt books and Rankin and Robert Mapplethorpe and all these guys. So I was just like, sod it. I'm just going to do a cold email. A few examples of work saying, look, you've done like one of my favorite books of all time, Personal Best by Elliot Erwitt. At one point in my career, I would love to do a book with you. Just at some point in my career, I'd love to do a book with you. And I listed in there, like the first book I did was number one on Amazon. At the time, I had like 125,000 followers. So all the key points that you're bringing something to the table. And then, they emailed me back 2 days later. I didn't not expect to get an email because people don't like to email back anymore, apparently. Got an email and said, yeah, we'd love to do a book with you. And rolled with it. And then it was like, shit, well, I better come up with some pictures. So thankfully, I had about 20,000 images that were edited from since 2019 of like street stuff. And then, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. in New York as well. So it was like a big news time period as well. And yeah, we put that together. So that was from 20,000 images down to about, I think it was 197 finally in the book. But it's done better than I ever could have imagined. We sold just under 5,000 copies in less than a year, and it launched as the number one street photography book in the world when we
Wow.
launched it. When we launched it, and again, that goes back to the support, the people that follow your work. So thank you, everyone.
And it's a beautiful book. Like the construction of it, the paper, the matte cover is just, I love the textured aspect, the texture aspect. I like being able to touch things. So
Certain pages, right?
yeah, so important. So important.
That's all them. I didn't come up with that at all.
I
all
tell
them.
everybody, like when people ask, I'm a huge Fred Herzog fan, being that he's
Oh, God, yeah.
a Vancouver
He's awesome.
legend, right? So
Yeah.
I finally completed my
He's just a legend.
yeah.
Like, unbelievable photographer. Yeah.
I completed my collection. I have all of his books now, which was a journey, but I was able to do it. Yours sits proudly right next to it in my case. So
Thank you.
beautiful. Anybody who wants to get it, just go find it. It's worth every penny. I'll have to bring it when I make it to New York and get you to sign it.
Definitely.
Because yeah, it's incredible. Do you have any plans to work on another one? Are you taking a break for a bit?
So there will be another one, probably later this year, with not announced yet, but it'll be like a short limited edition with photographers that I greatly admire.
Oh,
So,
cool.
but a highlight of my life is being in the same book with Elliot Erwitt and Thomas Hopker. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Elliot Erwitt?
I didn't get to meet Elliot. No, he passed not that long ago.
I had Bettina LaPlante on episode 8, and he was her mentor.
Oh, awesome.
And they would have Sunday night dinners in the Hamptons together. And like just hearing, like I was always a fan of his work, but when I heard the stories of him and building community and wanting people to be there while he did his shoots and wanting to share his knowledge, like he just gained so much more respect in my eyes as a human being, willing to share this immense talent with others. So that's pretty cool that, you have the same feeling about Elliot Erwitt as someone else that's been on that knew him personally and gave me more of a personal insight view of him as a person.
You can see it in his pictures because you can. I keep thinking about it. You can tell a lot about a person just from the kind of images that they take, or who they take pictures of, and the way in which they capture them. And the kind of work that he does is one of the hardest to do. Humor, because it can be very offensive. People can take it the wrong way. It's very, very hard to do it in a light-hearted way where you're not objectifying. You're not trying to make someone, you're not. Whenever you take a picture, you're not trying to make someone look bad, right? And he was the master.
Yep, huge fan. I just love photography. I love photography books. If I have a choice between sitting down and having to watch TV, I'd rather have a photography book and study the masters, study what they do and just capture. So Fred Herzog to me, because Vancouver local, I know some of the places he's captured. So what it looked like when he did it, when it was, old, gritty and grimy back when Vancouver was a working man's town, to what it is now where you see that corner store and now it's a multi-million-dollar high rise, right? So
you don't know what it's going to be in 30, 40 years though. So it could all go back, and your job is to document it now and show what it is now.
How was New York during the pandemic?
Interesting. It was uh, our lockdown wasn't anywhere near as strict as, say, Europe was. Like there, it's like the police would stop you on the street if you were out of like a mile out of your house. Um, Here, there was, it was suggested that you didn't go outside, but there were people everywhere. You know, it was very loose. Um, I kind of, from a photography point of view, it's unbelievable, right? Because you're getting to capture stuff that you're just never going to get to see again, or I hope that we don't get to see that again.
Yeah.
But yeah, just we were in a certain time period, moment in time.
Yep. I had, where I live, there's a small town called Fort Langley, and it's a tourist hotspot. There's not a moment until during a day, there's not a moment that it's not usually jammed with people. And I have images standing in the middle of the street with no cars, no people. And it was eerie feeling. You're usually there and there's thousands of people around you and businesses are closed. There's nobody anywhere. It's quiet, and I think I have 4,000 images of just capturing my city during that time frame. And it'll be something, like I was saying, I want to look into starting to do maybe a zine first, just to kind of get the feel, and then going into a coffee table size book. So similar to the sizing of your book here. I love it. Yeah. It's perfect size, by the way. Very great in the hands. But I want to do something with those images because it's, like you said, it's a time no one's going to see again.
Yeah. You should also reach out to I'm sure I did stuff with the US Library of Congress to get my stuff in their permanent collection. So it's probably a good idea to reach out to whoever your local, government, your permanent collection in Canada would be a good idea as well.
No, I didn't even think of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Then you're in history, mate.
Wow. It's,
give that a go.
I want to thank you for the wisdom today. You've given me so many, just listening to you, I never even thought about listening to a podcast about marketing. To me, I was trying to read it and I would get you read something and you're like, huh? And you're tired and you want to go to sleep. That's how it would always be. So podcasts make so much more sense. Contracts, how important contracts are, knowing the law and, getting your stuff into your government for their permanent library is something I never would have thought about. So I appreciate that.
That's the ultimate. Then you're in the history books. Once we're all ashes, right? It's still there.
Yeah. Thank you again, Phil, for your time today. Do you have any final words for everybody? Where can they find you? Best place to purchase your book, or any just last minute advice?
Enjoy it. Enjoy every minute. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Life is bloody short, and yeah, we only get one. Well, we don't know, but yeah, enjoy it. As far as work-wise, the book you can buy online. It's Amazon. All the regular suspects have it, and then they can buy signed copies through my website, philpenman.com, or I'm on any one of the million of social media channels, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all the rest of it. So, and I'm always posting up new work that you don't get to see everywhere else. So.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for sharing your story with us today. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed our show, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content and the stories of our incredible guests. And remember to stay connected with us on all social media platforms. It's at LIFE_OF_PHYS, or on the internet at www.lifeofphys.com. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.